Hello and a warm welcome from DD India. I'm Amit Mukherjee and you're watching Connecting the Dots, a show that gets into a deep dive, identifies and connects the dots to get you the big picture of our raging global issue. The extreme weather events around the world in recent months offer a terrifying glimpse of what lies ahead in a rapidly heating world. Now, to limit and prepare for future climate changes, about 200 countries are meeting at Dubai for the 28th Annual United Nations Climate Summit, or the COP28. In this episode, we discuss how extreme climate calamities are affecting our lives and what the world needs to do collectively to tackle these crises. A recent report of the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change 2023 says about 3.5 billion people, nearly half of humanity, live in areas highly vulnerable to climate change. The World Health Organization data says heat-related deaths among those aged over 65 years have risen by 70% worldwide in 2 decades. Now, only dramatic and dedicated efforts to limit warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius will prevent a future much worse than what we see now. The floods of 2022 displaced 33 million people worldwide. Forecast by the World Bank indicates that without bold and immediate action, climate change could dislodge approximately 216 million people by 2050. Now, as the climate crisis puts huge stress on lives and livelihoods, global food systems struggle to sustain a growing population, and water crisis is compounding the challenges. So as the world community meets in Dubai for the UN Climate Summit COP28, let's take a look at some of the extreme weather events of 2023. Now, 2023 has been a year of massive storms, floods and wildfires. Storm Daniel struck in northeastern coast of Libya in early September. Heavy rainfall triggered by the storm soon led to massive flooding and major dam collapses. The death toll mounted rapidly over the next few days. While over 4,000 were killed, nearly 10,000 went missing. Also, over 40,000 people were displaced. In March this year, Cyclone Freddy killed more than 500 people in Malawi, located in southeastern part of Africa. In May, Cyclone Mocha hit the coastline of Bangladesh and Myanmar, killing hundreds. Heavy rainfall during August-September caused severe floods and landslides across North India, affecting thousands of lives. Heavy rains submerged several Chinese cities this year. On September 7th, Hong Kong experienced its heaviest rainfall in the last 140 years. This caused widespread flooding in Asia's financial hub. Now, while there were excessive rains and floods in some pockets of the world, some parts experienced massive wildfires. These wildfires or forest fires continued to rage across the Mediterranean region in August. From Turkey to Portugal, countries around the Mediterranean saw their highest temperatures in decades as wildfires destroyed thousands of hectares of land. A wildfire on the Spanish island of Tenerife in August forced thousands of people from their homes. More than 12,000 people were evacuated to safe areas. Now, wildfire in Maui in Hawaii devastated the western part of the island, destroying thousands of buildings and killing about 100 people. Now, according to data from the European Union's Climate Change Service, the summer of 2023 was the hottest on record. The 3-month period from June to August surpassed the previous record of 1940. Well above average temperatures was also experienced in Australia, several South American countries, and around much of Antarctica. Death Valley in California hit a daily high of 54 degrees Celsius in July. Not just US, Japan recorded its highest average temperature in 125 years this summer. Japan's weather agency says the average temperature in the country between June and August was higher by 1.76 degrees Celsius. Australia, several South American countries and much of Antarctica also recorded temperatures well above average. So one thing is for sure, that the Earth is already on a simmering pot. The global warming is now closest to multiple climate tipping points in the Earth system. And the Arctic is warming 4 times faster than the rest of the planet. It's more like a chain reaction. The warmer Earth's surface is melting glaciers, leading to rise in sea levels. Now, for instance, this beach of southeastern Ivory Coast is depleting rapidly. To stop the erosion, people are barricading the coastline with sandbags. For them, it is a struggle for survival. The rapidly growing population of low-lying coastal areas of West Africa are particularly exposed to sea level rise. Now, this is accelerating globally due to extreme glacier melt and record levels of ocean warming. According to the World Bank report, West Africa's coastal areas generate over 56% of the region's economic activity. These areas host 1/3 of its population. Now, change in the coastal belt's geography are posing a great risk to the population and its economy. Now, the planet has already warmed 1.1 degrees Celsius since the pre-industrial era, and scientists warn that it could reach a worst-case scenario of 4 degrees Celsius by the year 2100 if we fail to tackle the cause of climate change, which are primarily emissions. Now, as the world continues to face extreme weather conditions in the backdrop of a global climate summit, or COP28, we take a look at some of the most pertinent questions. What are the effects of climate change on weather? What are the effects of climate change on the environment? What are the effects of climate change on animals? And last but not the least, what are the effects of climate change on humans? Now, also according to the recent IPCC report, rainfall during extreme precipitation events would increase by 7% for each degree Celsius of global warming, increasing dangers of flooding. Now, from the tropics to the poles, climate change is disturbing the ecosystem. Even a seemingly slight shift in temperature can cause cascading effects that damages food chains and the environment too. The effects of climate change are most apparent in the world's coldest regions, the poles. Scientists estimate that due to melting of sea ice and glaciers, as well as the expansion of the volume of warm water, sea levels could rise by 3.61 feet by the end of the century if we fail to curb emissions. The oceans, covering more than 70% of the Earth's surface, are bearing the brunt of our climate crisis. Also, high absorption of carbon dioxide by the oceans leads to its gradual acidification, which threatens marine life. Now, marine creatures such as coral, oysters, and mussels are most affected, as acidification disrupts the calcification process, which are required to form their shells. Land-based ecosystems, from old-growth forests to savannas to tropical rainforests, are also under stress. Climate change is likely to increase the incidence of pests and pathogens in forests. It is altering the type of vegetation that thrives in a specific area and disrupting the life cycles of wildlife. Thus, a structure of ecosystem is changing and making them less resilient to stress. Now, they can adapt, but there's a limit. Now, half of all animal species in places like the Amazon rainforest and Galapagos Islands are at risk of extinction due to climate change. Many species' behavior, such as mating, feeding, and migration, are closely linked to subtle seasonal variations such as temperature, rainfall levels, and foliage. In some cases, the changes are occurring faster than the species can adapt. And of course, climate change is affecting humanity in a big way. Climate patterns have shaped community structures and habits around the world. As global warming shakes these foundations, it threatens to change the fabric of the society. And of course, climate change is affecting humanity in a big way. Climate patterns have shaped community structures and habits around the world. As global warming shakes these foundations, it threatens to change the fabric of the society. Also, the air quality suffers. Forest fire smoke and ozone smog triggered by warmer weather poses health hazards, particularly for those with diseases like asthma or heart ailments. Also, pathogens like malaria and Zika germs become more virulent and are active for a longer period of time. And recent studies also indicate that climate change is taking a toll on mental health. Now, to raise awareness on climate change, UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres has recently visited Chile and Antarctica. Speaking at the UN General Assembly in September this year, Guterres said time was running out to tackle climate change. The UN chief urged policymakers to phase out climate-warming fossil fuels. Also in October, the heads of major oil and gas companies met in United Arab Emirates in an effort to agree on a firm commitment to reducing carbon emissions. COP28 CEO Adnan Amin said the meeting was aimed at motivating major industry players to make decarbonization commitments that will help limit global warming. So as the COP28 is taking place in Dubai, all eyes are on the energy sector and resolution on the compensation for less polluting developing nations. The developing nations, which have been contributing the least to climate change but are suffering the most, are hoping for a fair deal to adopt the green transition measures. So the damage now to the Earth's climate is evident and reaching a point of no return. It's high time now for a decisive and collaborative global action for a sustainable future for all.